You've seen that Spider-Man meme, they're pointing at each other. That's like De'Aaron Fox and Jaden Ivey. Though I would love to see Jaden Ivey fall to number 5 for the Pistons, something tells me that teams are not going to let that happen. And because of Troy Weaver and the position they're in as a franchise, you got to hit on talent. If they draft Shaedon Sharpe, I'm coming in probably butt naked.
Jeff, I'm excited. Final mock draft.
Yep.
Let's get it out of the way. Number 1 overall pick, the Orlando Magic select who?
Jabari Smith Jr. And we talked about this yesterday too. Like, as much as upside as Chet has, and I love it, we got to be realistic. And if I'm a general manager, I'm not taking that risk. I'm going with the safe player, a guy that effortlessly will translate to the NBA. So give me Jabari Smith Jr. number 1 overall.
Yeah, and that was my number 1 from day one. And it seems like the consensus he's more of a traditional scorer in my mind, and I like guys who have NBA bodies. Chet Holmgren does not have that. We assume that you're going to put him in a weight room in the NBA. They do their exercises, give him steroids, whatever. But he may never have a quote-unquote NBA body.
Oh, absolutely. And Jabari has the shooting, the versatility. And I had this conversation, too. If you look at the NBA Finals, it's Jabari Smith. Like, that's what you're looking for. Length, size, defensive intensity. He has it all. So Jabari Smith makes the most sense, although I would argue Paolo has that all-star potential. Jabari Smith, though, no doubt about it, deserves to go number 1 overall.
All right. That is very interesting. I'm not surprised, though. And Woj did come out with a report, like you mentioned a little earlier.
Yeah.
It seems like the 3 is sealed, top 3.
Yep.
It will be likely Jabari, Chet, Paolo. So number 2, I think you're going to stick with your guns from last time. I don't think you're moving off Chet Holmgren number 2.
No, yeah, Chet goes number 2. I think it's the best place for him. He walks into a destination with 2 playmakers that are going to make him better. And also, you got to think, too, when you talk about resume, Sam Presti, GM of the Oklahoma City Thunder, like, that's a guy who could take a risk on a guy like Chet Holmgren. I mean, he has the track record. He has more picks coming up in future drafts, so it makes the most sense to go number 2. So, yeah, I'm sticking with him, number 2 overall to the Thunder, Chet Holmgren.
All right, number 3 overall.
And then that's Paolo Banchero. I know a lot of Rockets fans have mixed feelings about it, but no doubt, man. I mean, this guy, if there's any way he falls, that's a guy that the Pistons should trade up and try and get. All-star potential. It is a top 3. Those 3 guys, consensus. So
Jalen and Paolo is the future.
Yes.
Essentially, you're locking up your backcourt.
Yep.
You think that's the right move?
And they just traded Christian Wood to the Dallas Mavericks. So you have a spot. And yes, it is. It is the right move. You get a 1-2 punch, and you get 2 guys that can put the ball in the basket. So give me Paolo Banchero to the Rockets.
This is where things get dicey.
Yes.
Sacramento at number 4.
But, if I'm the Pistons, I'm happy Sacramento's at 4. And it's not a team.
They're an organization.
I'm glad it's not the Boston Celtics or the LA Lakers or somebody like that.
A competent franchise.
Right.
Yeah, so basically Al Avila is working for the Sacramento Kings tonight.
And that's why I'm not too worried about it. I know a lot of people or a lot of teams are inquiring about that 4th pick. I know a team to watch tonight is the New York Knicks. Like, they're sitting there, I believe, at 11 or 12, and they're going to try and trade up. They've already offered multiple first-round picks.
Forget the player. Or, excuse me, forget the team. Who should be the number 4 overall pick under any circumstance?
It should be Jaden Ivey.
Okay.
But if the Kings stay, I have Keegan Murray. So
that was kind of my question is, are the Kings, if nobody's trading up, the Kings are going to stick to their guns and draft Jaden Ivey or Keegan Murray? If they draft Ivey, they can leverage him with any of the teams. But then the Pistons could say, well, F you, we're going to draft Keegan Murray. And then we're going to swap players or what?
Yeah, and then the Kings are in a bad position because now you have 2 guys. It's like, have you seen that Spider-Man meme? They're pointing at each other. That's like De'Aaron Fox and Jaden Ivey. Very similar players. So it's a weird fit.
Davion Mitchell's on the team. You have DeMontis Sabonis who plays with the ball. I think Keegan's a good fit for Sacramento. I think he's a good player.
Yeah.
But Jaden Ivey's the best player available at 4.
Right.
And somebody's going to want to move up and get him.
And that's what it's telling me. Like, although I would love to see Jaden Ivey fall to number 5 for the Pistons, something tells me that teams are not going to let that happen. Like, someone's going to try and trade up, whether it's the Knicks or another team. But right now, in my mock draft, staying put with the Kings, I'm going with Keegan Murray. He's the best fit for Sacramento.
Well, this leaves you with pick number 5 in the Detroit Pistons. And I know it's easy for us to all sit here and say, Jaden Ivey, right? Because we're all big fans of him.
Right.
Shaedon Sharpe is still available. Shaedon Sharpe, a month ago, was projected to go 4th consensus.
Yeah.
We're now sitting here. He might fall to 6, 7, 8 because the unknown.
Right.
Your thoughts on Shaedon Sharpe? Koo's a big fan. He would take a chance on him.
Mm-hmm.
Would you take a chance on Sharpe, one, if Ivy's available, and two, if he's not? I think I know the answer, but I do want to hear it from you.
There's two ways to look at this. My way and then the logical, Troy Weaver way. In my way, I swing for the fences. I want Shaedon Sharpe because I think he has the highest upside in the draft out of all the guards. But Jaden Ivey, you're getting a for sure guy. And you look at the Pistons, they have the number 5 overall pick. They don't want to be back in this position. Like, you have to hit on whoever you take. And for Shaedon Sharpe to be selected number 5, that would have to mean that Troy Weaver's confident he's going to develop into a superstar. So I can't fault them if they go Jaden Ivey. It makes sense. But for me, I don't expect the Pistons to be immediately any good this season. Next season, you'd like to see them take steps. But still, for me, I wouldn't have a problem if they swung, took Shaedon Sharpe, see what happens. At the very worst, a lot of guys are, putting him up. You talked about it, having him at number 4 to the Kings. So you can't fault them for taking Shaedon Sharpe, but to me, logically, Jaden Ivey makes the most sense. You have tape on him. He's among consensus best guard in the draft because you have tape on him. If Shaedon Sharpe played, we might have a different conversation. But because of the unknown and because of Troy Weaver and the position they're in as a franchise, you got to hit on talent. So I would probably predict Jaden Ivey. But again, I would love Shaedon Sharpe.
Yeah, I'm afraid of Shaedon Sharpe.
A lot of GMs are.
Yeah, because he hasn't played.
Yeah.
And I don't care how many pickup games you play. It's just not the same. But what does he do? What is Shaedon Sharpe? I mean, he's on the floor. What does he do?
He's a scorer. He's a scorer, and he's got the versatility, obviously, defensively. So there's the upside right there. Like, you have a guy who can put the ball in the basket, can play alongside Cade effortlessly. You can keep the ball in Cade and Killian's hands. You have Shaedon who can make plays. He hasn't shown the ability to consistently make plays for others, but a scorer. That's what he is. That's what you're getting day one.
But that doesn't matter if you have Cade Cunningham. And I'm going old school on you, young man, because I don't know. You kids keep changing the game.
Yeah.
But if you can do one thing exceptionally well, you draft that person. Now, if this dude's a scorer, it doesn't matter if he can play defense or not. He'll learn that.
Right.
But if he can score, and if he's exceptional at it, and he's a stone cold killer, bam, I have no problem with that.
Yeah. People are,
especially when you're playing next to Cade Cunningham.
Absolutely. And I think, in my opinion, I've always said this, I think the best fit next to Cade is a scorer because it's going to allow him, number one, spacing. If you have Shaedon Sharpe, who is a scorer and a guy that is going to be a threat to defenses, that's going to open up things for Cade Cunningham. And there's less questions. People always say with Jaden Ivey, he needs the ball in his hands, which I disagree with.
It's just not true.
It's not true at all. But if you get Shaedon Sharpe, you would at least know you have a guy that the fit is going to be effortless.
I want their addresses. Honestly.
Listen,
we don't
he
want
played
you calling
off ball
them.
for a majority of his time at Purdue.
Didn't even lead the team in assists. Played off ball. But yeah, it's illogical. And his 3-point percentage went up from year 1 to year 2. So
I don't know. I look at Jaden Ivey and he has basketball player written all over him.
He comes from a basketball family.
He just looks like a guy that can just play the game. And his ceiling is as high as Jabari or Paolo or Chet. You know what? Every year there's a guy that slips to 4, 5, or 6, 7.
Right.
I think Jaden Ivey's the guy that this year, not Shaedon Sharpe. So if the Pistons line Jaden Ivey, Jeff, according to your draft, I would be in here tomorrow morning smoking a cigar.
Yes.
Drinking 6 mulligans. I'll drink them all myself. Oh, God. Tomorrow would be quite the show.
It'd be Freaky Friday
on
steroids.
drunk
on steroids. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm doing Big D Energy tomorrow with Sticks. So trust me, if they draft Shaedon Sharpe, I'm coming in probably butt naked. But in the same point, if they draft Jaden Ivey, I'll be just as excited. I just think with Shaedon Sharpe, whoever takes him, if you're a team at like 10 to 13 and you take Shaedon, you're going to be very happy, I think. And it's low risk because you're taking him, in the back end of the lottery, and he could be the best player. So at 5, though, it's hard to argue that.
Well, you say a lot of GMs are afraid of him, but are they so afraid that he would drop to 10 or 12? I don't.
It's a good question.
I don't think that will happen.
Well, I don't think you have to look at it from a scared perspective. Think about it this way. If Al Avila was the GM of any of these teams,
here we go.
He would likely not pass on it. So
no, you would take him.
That's the truth.
You would take him.
Oh, man, Jeff, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem, man.